Hi, one more time. If the attendee calling in from the number ending in 0368 could please identify yourself.
Hopefully you can hear me now. This is Rep. Donna Shuren.
Hi, Rep. Shuren. I apologize. Your mic was disabled. We can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready. Good morning, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm glad most of us wore green. The ones that didn't, there are green ties available in my office. If anybody was wondering or lost and needs one, we do have a few available. If not, I'm sure Justin can comply as well in Senator Flynn's office because his office is painted green. Jeez. I call this informational meeting of the House Transportation Committee to order. I'll remind members that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. I will now ask all members to introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Representative Mary Isaacson from the 175th District in Philadelphia County. Travel the Turnpike a lot.
Thank you.
Representative Brian Smith. I represent District 66, Jefferson and Indiana County.
Representative Kerry Benninghoff, Senator in Mifflin County.
The representative from Allegheny County, Joe McAndrew.
All right. The representative from Lehigh County, Josh Siegel.
Online, we have Representative Jen O'Mara, Gina Kerry, and Donna Shuren. And Representative Joe Hohenstein is coming in now. In 1940, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, known as America's first superhighway, was opened. It's 160 miles long from Carlisle to Irwin with a full-length trip. Would have cost about $1.50 in tolls. Today, Pennsylvania Turnpike spans 565 miles from New Jersey to Ohio, and a full trip costs over $60 with an Easy Pass and over $115 without an Easy Pass. Approximately 550,000 motorists rely on the Turnpike every single day. In 2007, General Assembly enacted Act 44, which required the Turnpike Commission to make annual payments up to PennDOT of the amount of $450 million to fund public transportation. Although this payment was reduced $50 million in 2022, Act 44 is directly responsible for the Turnpike Commission's annual toll increases, that total debt of over $14 billion. Today we'll hear from Chief Executive Officer Mark Crompton and Chief Operating Officer Craig Shuey about the current state of the Turnpike as well as the open road tolling system which was rolled out last year. Chairman Benninghoff, is there anything you would like to talk about before we get started with our panel?
I just wanted to see if you were going to make a motion to make the tolls $1.50 again. That would make us very popular. No, we're ready to proceed. I think the history teaches, speaks for itself. I always enjoy when I'm at one of the stops watching the old black and white films. It's always amazes me how that road was built, but it's a great testament to Pennsylvania engineers and ingenuity and our workers, and we're proud of you and the commission and anxious to hear what you have to say. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Before we start, I want to recognize Representative Tomlinson is online, and with us is Representative Danzo and Renkavich. Well, good morning, gentlemen. Morning. Thank you. At this time, I welcome both of you, and you can begin when you're ready.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Nielsen, Chairman Benninghoff, distinguished members, and also a special thanks to Kyle and Josiah, who helped us kind of shape our talk with you today in hopes that we're hitting the things and the items that you'd like us to talk about. And obviously, if we're not, we'll make sure we get to that information, or we'll be here for any questions that you have. Also, too, I want to spend an acknowledgement and appreciation from our commissioners, Chairman Mike Carroll, Commissioners Leapart, Logan, Dion. All send their thanks, their regards for your assistance and everything that you've done on their behalf. So special thanks and also acknowledgement from them for being key stakeholders of ours. If you could flip to the next slide, please. What we wanted to talk to you a little bit about is the current state of the commission, how we're handling with traffic and with also too with our finances, and then we want to talk through a little bit about the open road tolling project, how it's going, how we're proceeding and how that's going. So we do consider ourselves a key economic driver here for the Commonwealth. As the chairman said, back since 1940, and the reason why the roadway was established was for economic development, and we're really proud of that has continued today, not just in what you see with the 550,000 motorists who use the road on a daily basis, but also a $600 million capital plan that we use to continue to feed the asset, if you will, which is an 85-year-old roadway that requires a significant level of maintenance and upkeep. And we're happy with the fact that we're using local partners to help us with that endeavor as it relates to our contractors and our designers who do that. Also, too, as we look towards an annual operating budget of $400 million, which also, next slide, clearly pays the salaries of our 1,400 employees who are our colleagues with us, who work alongside us, and also, too, as it relates to purchasing of goods. So the operating budget also a vital component of our system. If you take a look here, and as we say, it's an 85-year-old roadway, and we're really excited to be in growth mode. And why I say that is because a key part of what the General Assembly did back in the 1980s, as well as the original establishment of the system in the 30s, and then back in the 80s under the Act 61 projects, we continue to meet the obligations of that, and that allows us to continue to build in what is now currently being opened up to traffic, the Southern Beltway, and now the Mon-Fayette Expressway. The key part of this slide, which again, really like to highlight to you, is once again our 1,400 employees. So those are our colleagues we're really proud of and who work alongside us on a daily basis. What we wanted to talk about here is really with our traffic and toll revenue. So a key component of this is we monitor this on a monthly basis, and as you can see, traffic remains robust. Obviously, you see the dip that was done through what happened during COVID, which, as you can see, we did lose about 80% of traffic within the early months of that pandemic. But as you can see, we have picked up, and traffic is back and continues to be strong. One of the questions we often get is the resilience based on the toll increases. Well, what we can tell you is, as it relates to the way we monitor the traffic, we continue to be a resilient system. Next slide, please. A key part of what we did want to talk to you about today is how things have been handled since Act 44. So talk to you a little bit about how Act 44 was established. It was back in 2007, when under Act 44, the General Assembly had required that the Turnpike bond $450 million to PennDOT. My previous employer was PennDOT. I had a little different take on it when I was over there, but now being the key steward here at the Turnpike, obviously things are a little different. So as part of the act, as you may recall, there was a component that was to be the tolling of Interstate I-80. As you all know, that did not come to fruition. So this is the clawback position was to get to the $450 million a year. As it was established in 2007, half of the money went to transit, the other half went to highways. Moving along, the next component then would have been Act 89. So under the provisions of Act 89, that set the sunset provision till 2023 as opposed to 2057. So in that, the bill did sunset from the $450 million to the $50 million annually, and it also under Act 89 also took the to cap off the oil company franchise tax, which allowed us the opportunity to continue in earnest the projects under Act 61. So the Southern Beltway never would have been opened if we didn't have Act 89, and we clearly wouldn't be making any progress on what we're doing now with so Southern Beltway wouldn't have been opened, and also as we're moving on to Mon-Fayette, there would have been no money or resources for that project. That also would not have been done. So a couple key provisions under Act 44, and now that the sunset provision is in effect, we are now down to the $50 million. The question now is as to why do we still need to raise the tolls? Well, it's all 30-year bonded money. So last year, under fiscal 2022, 30 years will be when the last payment is made. And also, key provision of the act was that basic early payments were, for lack of a better term, interest only. What I mean by that is the revenues for the Turnpike, and if you flip the page, the revenues of the Turnpike weren't high enough to pay the actual debt based on the bonds at that time. So the interest has been escalating and will escalate until fiscal year 2038, to where we will hit the peak of the requirement under Act 44. So we will peak with our bond payments based on Act 44 in 2038. This gives you a little sense of really how we have to operate under what's called the Act 44 provision, or the Act 44 plan. This gives you a sense of just how well folks like Craig and my colleagues have managed the system based on the operating side. So if you flip the page here, what you can see too is really how the organization continues to work under the operating plan. So a relatively flat operating plan that year after year, they continue to come after budget or come below budget on an annual basis, and have really done so since 2010. Now, I got to tell you, and if you just won't mind a quick anecdote, I had a couple years ago, I was provided I walked to the mailbox and got a note from my water company that said that the rates are going to raise by 5%. So as I walk back in the house, I take this invoice and the note, and I open it up and start to complain to my wife. Can you believe these idiots running this place? Raising rates 5%. How ridiculous is this? What are these guys? I don't know who's running the water authority. I don't know who's on the board. I don't know what they've got in their capital plan. All I know is that their rates are raising. My wife lets me go on for about 2 minutes and says, "Hey, stupid, where do you work again?" I say that to you because I'm certain your constituents are coming to you. Why are these idiots raising rates? And really what we wanted to show you and to demonstrate to you today is that we're working hard to mine the shop. And what we call the mining of the shop is really the operating budget. And that's, if you go to the next slide, shows you a little bit about how we once again, continue to mine the shop, and we will continue to do so. The toughest vote our commissioners make on an annual basis is raising of the rates. It's a total increase. It's not done easily. It's done with a lot of data. But if you take a look at the next slide, this gives you a sense as to why we have to do it. Back to the debt that's required under Act 44. So if there's any good news in this, it's really the next slide, which gets you to the fact that we do continue to monitor ourselves on all things related to the other toll authorities. And what this tells you is, even as we raise our rates, we're still middle of the pack to the other toll authorities around us. Folks like New Jersey are also on a path to continue to raise their rates. And if you take a look at what we will do on an annual basis, is that until we get the debt paid off, the debt obligation under Act 44, we'll continue to raise the rates on an annual basis as called by our Act 44 plan. But the good news is that we come off of what was last year's 5%. Next couple years we get to 4%, and the goal is by 2028 to get closer to 3%, which would be closer to what inflation.
I want to hold you up.
Yeah.
1 second, because I want you to read the box for the record at the top, on the right-hand side of that slide. PTC tolls per mile are competitive and lower than the national average. Study claiming that we were the most expensive toll road in the world was flawed and completely inaccurate, because that's what everybody talks about. That's what everybody in our district. So if you can talk about that, just touch on that. I'm sure it's going to come up later, but I want to make sure that we hit that hard.
Yeah, and this gives you a sense of the rates around us. It demonstrates that we are mid-pack. The study that you're referring to was a study that was done in Australia by what I believe was an insurance company who basically did a swag and took us, if you would have taken the system from Pittsburgh to Scranton and took a look at some other things that just truth be told aren't accurate. So we continue to have to fight against this every time it comes up, because as you can imagine, with Google searches and everything, it still comes up. But the reality is really just what the chart says, is that we are mid-pack, and in that too, those around us do continue to raise rates as we do as well. But the hope is that even with our toll increases, we will continue to be mid-pack. Yep. If you turn to the next slide. With this now, so as you can see, we continue to work hard to be the economic driver, and a key part of that is really what we're doing with the over-the-road tolling. And the gentleman here beside me is Craig Shuey, and has worked tirelessly on this effort through the majority of his career with us at the Pike. And back in 2016, when we opened up our first pilot, known as the Delaware River Bridge, the commissioners instructed Craig and I to run this like a business and be as transparent as we can, because if we don't know the data, we can't fix it. You know, so a key part of the effort in doing this was to make sure that we had the data, and we keep working on the data. But we are where we are because of the man beside me, and I'm honored to call him colleague. So with that, Craig, I'll turn it over to you to walk through the system changes.
All right, thanks, Mark. Thank you. It's good to be here in front of the committee again. Been quite a while, and good to get back and share some of the things that we've been doing. As all of you who've been around a while know, that our journey towards open road tolling started quite a while ago. With the Delaware River Bridge in 2016, when we made that first conversion, we began pulling apart the organization, looking at how we could make this conversion, try to do it in a responsible way. And we did it in at least two phases, if you think of it that way, two major phases. The first being, well, three phases, I guess, if you count the pilots that we did to get us ready for the conversion in 2020. And obviously, we all know what happened in 2020, and it moved us ahead on our schedule to convert the system to all electronic tolling. We did that in place, meaning we used the existing toll plazas, added camera equipment on entry, and allowed us to create toll-by-plate trips to get us to a point where we could begin the conversion to open road tolling, which is the phase that you now see from Reading to the New Jersey line and up the Northeastern extension that opened up in January of this year. So one of the key components of being able to do this was Easy Pass penetration. We kept pushing Easy Pass use. It is a very effective tool for us. We're now, Easy Pass is compatible all the way from Maine to Florida, and as far west as some toll roads in Minnesota. We're creating partnerships with toll agencies in Texas and the other parts of the West now, trying to create a seamless national tolling system. So Easy Pass is going to continue to be a vital part of our success in being able to capture revenue and move traffic through. And this shows we're at 87.3% of our transactions are Easy Pass based. 12.7 are toll by plate. And the chairman mentioned the difference in the rate across state versus Easy Pass versus toll by plate. And that's because when you sign up for Easy Pass, we have an account with you, we have a relationship, we know who you are. When you're a toll by plate customer, unless you're a pre-registered toll by plate customer, we don't know you. We have a license plate, and that's where the process begins for us in terms of collecting tolls. So the risk is much higher to collect that toll, and the rate for that is reflected in the toll by plate rate. When you map the two together, even though there's about 50% loss on the toll by plate rate, we are whole. Where our financial standpoint, the goals that we set for our tolls are meeting what we expect. Next slide, please. A while back, we met with you folks and talked about the types of challenges we have in running an all-electronic system. As we said, getting the payment from the folks who have received the toll by plate, still the largest problem. But we had other issues that we needed to work on. Some of the technologies about gaining access to the plate, getting information correctly, getting a mailed invoice correctly, all needed some refinement. And we worked through that and made some progress. This bar chart shows you, the bulk of our system is paid for by Easy Pass effective transactions, toll by plate payments that are paid, and then the top, starting in the orange and working its way up to the red, are the other areas where we're not seeing payments returned. Unpaid toll by plates remain the largest portion of that. We still have undeliverable addresses, meaning we get some information from a DMV, it comes back to us as not deliverable. We've made a 71% reduction in that space by using some tools that our collections agencies gave us and other places that we can look to try to get a more accurate set of information. In some cases, we even hold and retry the invoicing to make sure that we catch people on the cycle of their registration renewals. Addresses unavailable, we've been able to reduce that area by 22%, and unreadable images we've been able to reduce by 27% since we went live in March by continuing to refine the process, grabbing license plates, allowing for additional manual review of those license plates as well. So we've squeezed the pieces on the top that we can control. We've pushed up the pieces on EasyPass. We moved up another 1.5%. We're starting to hit what we think is peak growth there. So we may continue to try to refine how we can convince folks to sign up for EasyPass to get that lowest possible rate. But the piece in the middle, that slice of folks that are getting an invoice from us and choosing not to pay, remains the biggest piece of what we wanted to, or of what we need to continue to work through. Next slide, please. This slide's a little bit more detail of those reductions. And you can see from the graphic on the right side of that slide, a lot of folks think, plate obstructions and other things are a major portion of our problem. This piece over here, system issues, plate obstruction, intentional, license plate missing from a vehicle, and an accidental, what we would consider accidental, meaning somebody's got something on the back of the bumper that may be blocking it temporarily. This only makes up 0.8% of our total transactions. But license plate missing and obstruction are the biggest pieces of that. Intentional is growing. We're seeing some people get creative. You guys passed a plate flipper ban legislation last year. That was helpful. We have, I think, some corrections that we'd like to talk to you folks about maybe here in April to try to get some more flexibility in that space. Because what we're seeing is not necessarily people flipping plates. We're seeing people do kind of creative things with numbers on the plates to sort of try to fool our cameras. And some of those things are actually being sold in retail locations across the Commonwealth for specifically the purpose of either trying to defeat our cameras or red light cameras or other speed cameras as well. So we're a little concerned about the growth in that space, and we are going to talk to you about how we might be able to more effectively address that problem. Next slide, please. Again, more illustration of how we're trying to reduce the address issue. We're working with DMVs directly to try to get information from them. That works really well in states that have toll agencies. States that don't have toll agencies are a little less interested in working with us, but we are making inroads in that space, and that's where we will be able to draw that number down as well. Obviously, the technology is something that always evolves, and we will continue to try to streamline and ensure that what we're doing is on the cutting edge. But there are methods we use to try to capture from those folks that are not paying us. We use collection agencies. We have two that we use in rotation. The group that gets the best return gets more of the business to try to work through. And we've seen some pretty good improvement in this space. We're at 16.7% of collection from those two entities now. That was in 2024. We've actually seen some months recently where we got as much as 25%. We're not sure how sustainable that's going to be. As you guys are all well aware, the smishing campaigns that every one of your offices has heard about, and we've tried to talk to folks about, is also creating that negative concern for customers who get a collections notice or who even get invoices from us, thinking that perhaps it's also a scam and not responsive as a result. So we're going to continue to try to work through that, but we've got some good success on collections, and we're working with the Attorney General's office now, who just renewed a contract with another collection agency that we're going to try to place some harder to collect debt with, and hope that contract can be worked out in the next few months. Next slide, please. Reciprocity agreements. You folks gave us the authority to enter into agreements with other jurisdictions to try to ensure that we have adequate ability to work Yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. We have adequate ability to collect revenue from out-of-state residents. Those things have continued to work forward. New York right now is the most interested state we have in trying to create this, this agreement. We're continuing to talk through the details with them and hope within the next few months to be able to say we have an agreement with New York. New Jersey passed legislation a few years ago, but they have yet to really expand beyond their own borders. I don't know if much of that has to do with the congestion pricing controversy in New York City or not, but they're not right now working with any other states to try to create a reciprocity agreement. We do have an agreement with Delaware, but they chose not to implement it. And quite frankly, Delaware would be great to get, but for the most part, the traffic and the out-of-state paid is more Pennsylvanians in Delaware than Delawareans in Pennsylvania. So continuing to focus on that, but it's not drawing the attention and the heat that we'd like it to at this point. So we are working with our legal partners to try to begin serving civil cases against folks out of state as we are in state to ensure that we're fairly treating that unpaid revenue coming from out of state. That's what I wanted to talk to you about on the sort of system, the state of the system. But I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about the open road tolling launch. So if you could switch to the next slide. This one illustrates in a line chart across the state what parts and what interchanges are now part of the open road tolling system. This will move from the east across the system and be fully integrated in 2027. But we were able to build from Reading to the east and up the northeast extension and activate that system in January. That came with a couple of major changes. Pennsylvania Turnpike was the last public agency, toll agency in the nation using weight as the basis for its tolling. When we moved to over-the-road tolling, there was no effective way to be sure to capture minute changes in weight at highway speeds. So we had to change the toll structure and toll system. And what we adopted was one that's very familiar across the nation. Most tolling agencies are using something very similar. There's different cut points. Everybody had a different take on how to treat commercial vehicles and how to, in our case, what we tried to do was try to minimize the impact on recreational users and not throw them into the same category as a tractor trailer. But we came up with a system that has different toll rates than currently exist. We went from 9 toll rates to 11, which seems like it's more complicated, but it was designed around trying to minimize the impact on a passenger car towing a boat or a recreational trailer. If you go to the next slide, you can see the comparison of these toll rates and the factor that we use. So the base rate is a too low. That's a vehicle that's under 7.5 feet between the axles. Anything from a generally good-sized pickup truck to a passenger car are all going to be in that too low classification. If you're towing a single trailer, you're going to be in 3 low. And as you move up 7 high, that's going to be your tractor trailers and all the things in a classification 7 higher, or with the H attached to it, are things that have a center point between the median axles of over 7.5 feet. So box trucks, big vans, those are the types of things that are going to classify as a high. And you can see the way we use, the factor we use for creating that toll rate is replicatable and easy to understand. Our old toll rates were essentially 9 classes created in 1940 or shortly thereafter, and every year they were added to, or every time the tolls were increased, they were increased by the percentage that the commission passed the toll rate. So we had wildly different toll rates per mile across the system. Closer interchanges paid more per mile than further interchanges, and that's a piece of what we tried to smooth over with the conversion to open road tolling this spring. So all of that occurred in January when we switched from the axles to the height, from the weight to the axles and height profile using that methodology. So that went across the whole system and was the most disruptive of the changes that occurred in December. We did apply a 5% increase, but we also changed the way in which we calculate that increase. So There were winners and there were losers, so to speak, in the way that rolled out, in that some folks saw a less than 5% increase and some have seen a greater than 5% increase as that maps its way across. But as we are going to continue to have to raise tolls to meet our obligations, over time, this will remain to be a fairer and easier way to understand the changes coming to each of your toll system, or each of the toll rates going forward. This is, like I said, something that is done in a similar fashion in New York, a similar fashion in Florida, a similar fashion in other places that have adopted this style of open road tolling. If you go to the next slide, this is a graphic that better represents what that change looks like. So as you can see, our classification on the left side is passenger cars with a 7,000 pound difference, and then a 4,000 pound difference, and then a 15,000 pound difference in those different classifications. Again, probably in the 1940s to 1960s timeframe, those classifications were created, and they really haven't changed since then, other than adding the toll rates on top of them. And then on the right, you can see very clearly what types of vehicles are going to fall into the classification system for axle and height going forward. That is my last slide. I think Mark has a slide he'd like to talk about, so if you go to the next one, and then we're ready for questions.
Thanks, Craig. And we did just want to end here on what is a key and vital component of what we do every day, and it speaks to our strategic value of responsibility, and that is Sustainable Roadway 2040. So the program, the projects that Craig just talked about, there's obviously environmental benefits that are a key part of that, less idle time, interchanges that will require less right-of-way, as well as continuing that conversation. We were, once again, the recipient of a 100% score on our Green Gov checklist, which also includes things like microgrids that are earning revenue. We received $1 million back based on a microgrid we set up in Westmoreland County. So the payback for that will be back within the next 5 years. So we're continuing the push on more microgrids across the system. Also, too, we'll have EV charging across the roadway, each of our 17 service plazas within the next 2 years. We negotiated the same agreement that we did with the fuel, so that will also be revenue generating back to the system. So we continue to make this push because it's the right thing to do, and we're also doing it in such a manner to ensure that we're also getting what we call non-toll revenue is part of the effort. So it's the right thing to do, and also has many benefits back to the organization. So with that, we'll turn it back over to you, Chairman.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your testimony here today. Before we get into questions, I want to make sure that I recognize that Representative Sharon is here in person, and Representative Madsen has joined us. He started celebrating his birthday this morning, so that's why he was a little tardy. But I don't want to.
Happy birthday.
I just want to wish him a happy birthday here on the record.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman Benninghoff and I are willing to go out and celebrate with you and allow you to buy us lunch today. We appreciate you coming.
I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I'll start it off. The first thing was you talked about toll by plate. Registered plates. What's it? What do you mean, registered toll by plate user?
Sure, yeah. We wanted to give an option for people who didn't want the Easy Pass tag, but wanted to try to get a lower rate. And we gave them a 15% discount off of the toll by plate rate if they wanted to sign up for that product. It doesn't have a lot of people who've used it, but it was an option we decided to allow because there are some people who don't want a tag in the window. Now, again, most people are recognizing that the discount for Easy Pass is worth the effort, and therefore taking that option. But we did put it out there, and it allows for a 15% discount if you give us a payment method and your license information. So we kind of run through a flow chart of checks. We go through and we make sure that as a transaction is reviewed, we see if it has Easy Pass valid tag or Easy Pass valid account. We apply it to that. If it doesn't go to that, the next place is registered toll by plate, and then we work our way down to the folks that are less known to us.
Crazy question. Last week I was out west. Being from Philadelphia, I left here, left Philadelphia, and I took the Turnpike all the way out west. But yet on the way home, it took me across 80. and brought me down through Scranton. That was the fastest possible way to get to where I was, both times. Ways, of course, I used one of your partners. But you brought it up, so I'm going to talk about it.
Okay.
Because it was packed. Trucks, 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 more trucks. Tolling of I-80. We know it failed before. Was there any thoughts or any studies or any consideration of looking into that again?
What I would tell you, Chairman, is the Turnpike started their reconstruction back in 2000. So by round numbers, we're about 150 miles through the 560 miles. That's a reconstruction program that started in earnest back in 2000. Slowed a little bit based on Act 44, but with a goal of trying to get 6 to 7 miles per year complete. From my old days back at PennDOT, PennDOT, based on their revenue, hasn't been able to start that same process. So the interstate system, as you all know, is in dire need of some level of reinvestment. What we learned through the process in which we partnered with PennDOT, we are able to toll other parts of the state system if that's the desire and the will of the General Assembly and the governor. So in partnering with PennDOT, we are able to expand tolling if that is the desire. What I would tell you is I'm not sure in transportation there's a whole lot of things you can look to besides road user charging. So I would tell you at some point I would think you're going to have to start having those discussions as to what you're going to do with the rest of the interstate system.
Yeah, I want to try and get the committee ahead of the curve here so we can at least learn about what it could do and what it can't. Because when I got off to get on the Turnpike on the Northeast Extension, I was behind a line of tractor trailers that were doing the same thing. And I don't know what that cost savings is for a tractor trailer to go from point A to point B. But I'll tell you, it was wall-to-wall trucks. Last question is, this toll by plate and the way we're reading plates now, is there any kind of system in there, like for, say an Amber Alert goes out and we're looking for that person or the toll jumpers?
Yep.
Is there any kind of notification system within the system that mandates us or allows us to contact the troopers or law enforcement to make sure we capture those moments?
So the toll system is designed to provide our back office with information at a pace that is different than what you would need at the roadside, meaning there's a filtering process that has to occur right now before we can grab that information and immediately ping it. However, Pennsylvania State Police very recently began putting reader technology, license plate reader technology on all of their vehicles. Troop T's, unfortunately, the last. They're going to be opening or going to have that available to them in April of this year. Prior to this, we asked the state police to join us in a pilot, and we began putting specific law enforcement-based technology on our overhead sign structures. So this is separate from the toll system, but it allows law enforcement to see those folks right now that are suspended driving on the Turnpike. They can see those folks. There's a special notification called a Q stop, and there are other alphanumeric named stops in there for different reasons. But that is one use of that system, is being able to capture those folks at the roadside or passing nearby that are in violation of the registration statute. So they're suspended registration, and that pops up. Amber alerts and other silver alerts, and I think there's another proposal for a green alert for veterans out there. Those would be able to be read in real time at those locations. So we are working with the state police to expand that, and we're expecting to be able to put that technology on those overhead gantries, keeping it separate from the tolling system so it's always available to law enforcement when they need it. We think that approach will give us the ability to really deter folks from using our roadway to do bad things.
Thank you. Representative Bellman and Hohenstein have joined us here in person as well. First question would come from Representative Madsen. No? Good? Good there? Representative Rankavich.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for your testimony here today. You spoke a little bit about trying to get people off of toll by plate and get them to a easy pass transponder model, and to incentivize our constituents to do that, you've offered them a discount. Now, as I understand it, the Easy Pass fee structure is a $3 a year processing fee plus a $35 balance that we have to hold in our Easy Pass account at all times. What is the purpose, if you're trying to incentivize Pennsylvanians to sign up for an Easy Pass, to continuously bill us $35, even if we're not using that balance? And I would also like to ask, do you know how much money is sitting in unused balances that the Turnpike Commission is receiving, and are you earning any interest on those dollars that are just sitting in that account?
I don't have that information for you readily, but we can get that for you. The purpose of Easy Pass holding a balance amount is that the promise of Easy Pass from state to state is that you, the holding state, will pay the using state, the state that the services are being used in, you will pay them for a valid Easy Pass transaction. If there is no balance, when you travel to New Jersey or other places, there's no surety. So if we don't keep some revenue on hand, those accounts can become dormant, and there is no way for us to necessarily pay New Jersey other than giving them revenue out of our coffers that we don't have coming from the customer themselves. So there's a balance piece of that that's important for the pact among Easy Pass states. The other piece of it is we don't want to spend a large percentage of our revenue paying for credit card fees. Each time you ding a card, that's why some locations won't take charges for less than $10. Some retailers won't allow you to, or will charge you a percentage on top of your fee if you want to use credit cards. It's because those credit card fees are significant that we don't want to do that each time. That's why the balance is there to provide that cushion. And that's why that balance goes up if you use the Turnpike frequently enough that 35 is being recharged 3 or 4 times a month or greater. The $3 fee is something that we're looking at modifying or changing, because right now that's a $3 fee per tag. And what we're trying to encourage is a 1-to-1 tag ratio in everybody's car. It will really work. The system will work better for us. We used to see lots of people waving their tags as they went through the toll plazas. That's a lot harder at highway speeds under these gantries, and so we'd really prefer to have everybody have their tag. We're working on a complete redo of our back office, and one of the features of that will be a shift there. I'm not sure exactly what it will be, but we are trying to incentivize more people to have more tags in their vehicles and less reasons for them not to want to do that. I don't see a scenario easily worked in where we don't have a balance of some kind because of those agreements and because we don't want to capture or we don't want to owe all those credit card fees, unless the structure is such that there are convenience fees on top of Easy Pass rates in order to make us whole for that. So that's kind of the background on why that happens. And as an example or an anecdote as to why that's important, a few years ago, we used to sell live tags in retail locations. And the reason we did that was because we wanted people to be able to take advantage on a trip, on a random thing, grab your tag, go to the beach, have it live the minute you grabbed it without having to activate it and set up the account. What we were finding is there were people walking into retail locations, walking out with 30 or 40 tags, selling them in some fashion or form to commercial or other entities that were looking to try to escape tolls. They would run it down to, or run it into negative balance, and then trash the tags. And they were able to do that at the commercial level. They were showing up as valid Easy Pass transactions in those states until we caught up with it. And so we had to change that policy to make sure that we didn't have zero balance or live tags out there that could be run down without an account and a credit card, valid credit card attached to them. So there's certainly some challenges, and we are trying to figure out ways to make it more customer friendly, and I think that will evolve over time.
And as you look into how you're changing that transponder fee, I would ask you to take a look at maybe getting rid of that for Pennsylvanians to incentivize them to get easy passes. Certainly you're generating, I would hope you're generating interest on holding those unused balances that I know many of us have. So thank you for your testimony.
Yep, thank you.
Chairman Benninghoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you very much for a very good presentation. I hope this is available to some extent on your website so other people can kind of learn from that. One piece of guidance Ed and I kind of joked about is there's very few of us probably around for Act 44 and Act 84, pardon me, 89. So whenever you're talking to our members, I would encourage you to remind them exactly what those things were and how one kind of repealed some of the responsibilities forever. Sometimes they think they go on forever. A couple of quick questions. One, on the toll by plating, I think you said it's about 12.7% of your overall revenue. I'm curious of the percentage of the uncollected, how much of that from out of state versus in-state?
I'll share the very specific numbers with you after the fact, but
Okay.
We get, believe it or not, we get a greater payment rate from out of state for folks on a sort of a one-to-one basis because of the number of people who travel that are Pennsylvanians. So
Right.
when it comes to our passenger vehicles, you know, it's a lower percentage of out of state that don't pay us. However, we are finding that there are we're doing some deep data dives, and we're finding some very key issues that, you know, the folks in New Jersey are a little less likely to pay than some other states surrounding us, and we are working on trying to go a little deeper into how we do enforcement in those spaces, because we're finding that, you know, the more data we slice, the more we're able to analyze and try to tool, or tailor rather, the tools that we're using to try to fight that non-payment. So we're trying to get more aggressive in places where it makes the most sense. But I'll share the percentage data with you separately.
I suspect you have to also calculate in when it becomes a point of diminishing returns of trying to chase the money. I'm sitting there thinking about the fact, you know, I get a statement periodically from my Easy Pass basically selling where my account's at.
Yep.
You know, is that something that we'd eventually stop the paper chase and just do that electronically? I don't know what it costs to send all that
Well,
mail out.
if you're getting a paper invoice, you're paying for it. Because we haven't sent paper invoices without paying for it, without charging for them in quite some time.
Well, I guess that goes with that 20 antique car buying. Ed likes to harass me about my older vehicles,
But everything is on.
Picture of it.
Everything is on is on your account. So yeah, that's all online, and you can see all that information. I can't tell you how far back we keep that information, but it's there for quite a while.
But you're saying I can click on there or something and just eliminate that because I thought it was just a statement of where my balance was because I have.
That's online and on your account. You can read that anytime. But if you're getting one mailed to you, we do charge you for that. I forget what the charge fee is.
Well, I'll be
for
more
it.
than glad to get rid of that and save you a couple dollars and me as well.
But you mentioned something about the diminishing returns, and that's an effort that we are ongoing now, is to try to more deeply understand who's not paying, why are they not paying, where are they, what are their characteristics, because we're trying to figure out what is the amount that, or the location or the type of customer that we're not going to spend as much time with. But so far we've been trying to focus on fairly seeking repayment for folks across the board. We'll get to be more precise over time, but there is probably a point in time where a $5 toll to a couple in Iowa that hasn't been paid is probably not worth going after. But for now, we're still trying to ensure that we get all that revenue as we can. And the collections agencies in some cases do a pretty good job of grabbing some of those smaller ones.
Right, and I respect your efforts. I'll suspect there's also going to always be some rebels who are maybe just not want to do it, just kind of test the system.
Yes.
I personally don't miss digging underneath my seat trying to find a couple quarters to chuck in the old turnstile that we used to go through. Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I really enjoy the Easy Pass. For anyone that's listening that doesn't have it, get it. It's a lot easier.
Thank you for the free ad.
Yes, thank you. Two other quick things. One, make sure I can read my own notes here. I also think, and this is more for edification, you know, we have a tendency to somehow separate the cost of everything else in life. If you sat there and compared to how things have gone up, your tolls, whether it's the price of a vehicle, a glass of wine, and or a cup of coffee, I'm always amazed that people are willing to pay $9 for a 5-ounce pour of wine. I don't even know how many ounces are in a cup of coffee because I don't drink it, but, you know, they're 5, 6, And sometimes, depending how long they're on the turnpike, you might buy 2 of them, but yet we get these calls about the increases that people just don't see that this is a reinvestment. So I was glad to see you tell us about the amount of mileage that's been repaired, rebuilt. You're almost at the halfway point, 6 to 7 miles a year. Last thing is just my own, you spurred something when I saw your diagram on the sustainable roadway. For years, I've had this thought in my mind that are there not abilities with all the guardrails and everything we build along these roads to put some type of little turbine that would capture the wind as all these vehicles going by. For those of us who have ever broke down along the road, you get a real good example of how much wind energy is being expended by these vehicles going by to eventually put that electricity back on a grid. Your one picture caught my attention. I don't know if that's something down the road as a cost, probably not a cost generator, but as a revenue generator for the commission, get that energy on the grid. To me, it's passive generation. It's costing nobody to do it other than the infrastructure.
Yes, especially too as we continue to look, solar has been a big part of that. So the microgrid strategy there, just had an RFP go out and come back that we're looking for a vendor to come and help us with that. The wind stuff too has been something that we've worked with our Innovation Council on, and have taken a look at some of the pilots, especially around the tunnel areas, as to what can be done up in the plenum areas for that to do exactly what you're saying and regenerate at least the components that go back into that tunnel. So that is something we continue to look at too. What's also interesting is down the road, we continue to talk to our biggest and best customers, which are kind of your FedExes and UPSs, about what they see moving forward. And a lot of that too is actually having to charge within the roadway. So when we get to some of the later phases of the Mon-Fayette, component of that's going to be putting an inductive charger inside the roadway to work with UPS and FedEx about charging as they're moving, with the understanding as we sit here today, they won't be able to have a battery big enough or powerful enough that would allow them to charge like a passenger vehicle does. So that would be the next evolution of that too. So those type of things, we continue to really work with our customers to make sure that we stay the road of choice when folks are making those type of investments.
I appreciate your detailed information. I look forward to seeing that in the future and knowing that my crazy idea 15 years ago might actually come to fruition.
Yeah.
There are places where they're doing something similar to that. The challenge that we've looked at is trying to do it in such a way that people won't hit it, that it won't become part of a roadway hazard. So I think the tunnels, as Mark mentioned, are something that we may be able to utilize the continued volume of air pushing through there in such a way that we might be able to do that safely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative DeVanzo.
Thank you, Chairman. You guys may have stated this number, and I may have missed it, but do we have an actual number on the tolls that aren't being collected?
The number that's not being collected, yeah, it's about 4.5% of our total transactions.
What is that number?
The amount of dollars?
The amount of dollars, yeah.
It's approaching 200 million right now on a 12-month rolling annual basis.
Behind you guys on a map here out west, we have a solar farm. We have some windmills out east. What is the Turnpike's interest in that? Is that does the Turnpike own the facilities, just leasing it, just buying the energy? Can you touch on that a little
For
bit?
the microgrid specifically, we own those. It's on our property, and so we own it. It's an asset that we're continue to establish across the system, and then we're also, because we're using the energy and then also selling back to the grid, we're making revenue off of those as well. We currently just have the one up and running, another one in construction, and we're planning to do more across the system.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Before I let you go, as a final easy pass reminder, at 10:49, I did receive a text saying you have an outstanding toll, your toll account, if you fail to pay, as we sat here and you were answering questions.
I'm sure that's a
Here it
fake.
came. So I'm going to hit Y and comply and pay it real quick.
Please don't.
For
But
the
the,
record, to Chairman, we are working with FBI on that. We're also working with other toll authorities across the country as they continue to run the gauntlet on that. So we haven't found any quick answers to make those stop, but we are working hard to get the word out to our customers so they know it is fake, and also too working with law enforcement to try to do something about it. It's been a
And
tough.
as of all our legislative offices are doing the same as well. We spoke about it a few times, just to make sure we're all on the same point statewide on our messaging when it comes to this. But thank you, and I appreciate your testimony. This meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.